Should we begin or should we wait for another minute?
Let's wait, I think.
Okay, fair enough. Let's wait.
Should we put a message or something in group? Like we are starting in 2 minutes or something like
Yeah,
that.
sure, sure. It's 2:05. I believe we should begin now. Those who do wish to join, they can join later.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, fair. Sorry. If you could keep your video on, please, that'd be great. It'd be easier for me to speak as well. Okay, let's begin. Namo Variantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Uvajjayanam, Namo Nisavvasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro, Savva Pavak Panasano, Mangalanam cha Savvesam, Padamam Havai Mangalam. So, the last 2 weekends, we've been looking at Shri Pancha Sutra. We've been doing Swadhyaya of Shri Pancha Sutra, a very uh, eminent sutra in the Jain Shasan, particularly because it lists down the journey right from the beginning, from the Apunarbandha Kavastha, and it goes on till the person attains the actual fruit of dharma, that is moksha. Accordingly, this spiritual journey has been bifurcated into 5 parts, and each part is looked at with the help of a specific sutra. So we're looking at currently the first sutra, which is Pap Pratighat Gun Bijadhan Sutra. Uh, we also saw the names of the other four, but we also saw how our Atma in the past has jumped to the second or third stage in infinite times in the past, but because of violating this sequence, even though the Atma has taken Diksha infinite times before, nothing came of it. We're in the same place. We haven't moved at all. So This is why Bhagwan Haribhadra Sweshaji Maharaja uh, has written a commentary on this Granth to make the padarths of this Granth more specific. And when an acharya of his stature is writing a commentary on a particular Granth, it only shows that the actual Granth is certainly something that, certainly something that is of great impact, of great significance. Uh, in the beginning, we looked at the Mangalacharan verse, which says Namo Viya Raganam, Savvanunam Devendra Puyanam, Jahatya Vathuvainam Teloka Gurunam, Aruhantanam Bhagavantanam. The Granthkar Bhagwant bows down to his Ishtadevta, who here is Vitrag, Sarvagna, Devendra Puchit, and so on. But we saw that all of this denotes uh, the four Atishayas of Paramatma, the first being Apaya Pagamatishaya, Gyanatishay, Pujatishay, and Vachnatishay. It is these four Atishayas which you can expand into 12 qualities of Aryan Paramatma, which you can further expand into the 8 Pratiharyas and the 34 Atishayas of Bhagwan, and so on. We looked at that, and immediately after doing Stuti of Vitrag Paramatma, the Granthkar Bhagwant goes on to talk about what Bhagwan's Updesh is. And this is when Bhagwan immediately, at the very outset, starts to describe the sansar. So before we proceed uh, to proceed further with the Granth, is there any sort of misunderstanding or a question or a doubt that anyone has with respect to this Granth? If not, we'll move right away. All right, okay. Seeing none. So the sutra further goes on. Bhagwan says, Je eva maik khanti, iha khalu anai jive, anai jiva sabhave, anai kamma sanjoga nivattiye, dukharave dukhafale dukhana bandhe. Bhagwan says, and we also saw the choice of words used by the Granthkar, Je eva maik khanti. The word achakshate is used here, and this Sanskrit word is used in place of several other alternatives which convey the same meaning, that is to say, to convey, or to express. But here the word achakshate denotes that the speaker is speaking this with utmost clarity. So, of course, here the speaker is Bhagwan. The Updesh is given by Tirthankar Paramatma himself. So there is no scope for any ambiguity at all. Even today, although Paramatma isn't present with us physically, when we look at Paramatma's Shruta Gyan, we see that even though there are so many things, so many facets of Shruta Gyan itself that were destroyed with the flux of time, whatever we have right now is so complete in the sense that it helps us guide in different walks of life. And with respect to any question that there might be, there is utmost clarity to be found in the scriptures. Uh, and Paramatma goes on to say that Iha khalu anai jive. In this lok, in this universe, there are the Jiva has been here since time immemorial. There has been no beginning. Uh, there has been no particular point in time when the Jeev came into being. It has always been there. And these statements, although very short, convey the very clearly the position of the Jain Shasan with respect to the order of the universe that is shown in our scriptures. There are certain people who say that there was a point in time where the Jeev came into being. Uh, there was a void before, or some entity called God created the world. So at the very beginning, Bhagwant, he refutes all such beliefs, and he establishes that the Jeev has been in place since time immemorial. Furthermore, Anai Jivasa Bhave, the sansar of this Jeev has also been here, has also uh, been running since time immemorial. And the third is Anai Kamma Sanjoga Nivattiye. The Sayog, or the connection of the Jeev and Karma, have also both been together since time immemorial. Which is to say that uh, once a particular Jeev, uh, it's not like a particular Jeev once entered into Ragindvesh and then there was a given point in time where the Jeev started becoming Sansari. We can understand this with the example of uh, an ore of gold. Now we know that gold is a precious, precious mineral, And when you extract it from the ground, it's present in a very crude form, in the form of the ore. How long it's been there, we know not. You can't pinpoint and say that, oh, at a particular point, this pure metal, namely gold, became impure, by way of certain impurities, by way of becoming one with the ore. Just like you can't pinpoint that out, the Atma and the Karma have always been together uh, in the sansar from an infinite time, and there was no particular point in time. We're not saying we can't point out. The fact is that there was no particular point in time where the jeev first engaged in karma bandh and started becoming sansari. Because we also saw that if we were to believe otherwise, uh, a lot of things wouldn't make sense at all. Such as a person who has gone to moksha could also then be, liable uh, to the bondage of karma sometime in the future. So, uh, having known that, Bhagwan now describes what the sansar is. He says, "Dukkha ruve, dukkha phale, dukkhanu bandhe." The sansar is, and he unequivocally says, dukh roop. The nature of the sansar is inherently sorrow. Uh, this means that even the most punyashali person, be it Indra Maharaja, be it Tirthankar Bhagwant himself, be it Chakravartis, be it whoever, even those who have the highest amount of punya in this uh, in this life or the next, even for them, if you let go of all the other sufferings that a Sansari Jeev might have to encounter, if you look at these Shalaka Purush alone, even they have to undergo uh, and compulsorily Janma, that is birth, Jara, that is old age, and Mrityu, that is death. So these three phenomena are present in every Sansari Jeev, and the pain that the Atma and the body experiences at this particular point in time, the scriptures try to describe this by way of using certain analogies, certain metaphors, and when we hear about it, it gives us goosebumps. Uh, Even if we disregard that, we see in front of our eyes, the pain that one undergoes at the time of birth, the pain that one undergoes at the time of death. Uh, Not only the physical pain, but also the mental aspect of it. So, the sansar is dukh roop, Bhagwan says. He further says that it is dukh falak. Dukh falak is that the fruit of this sansar is also in the form of sorrow. And further, the parampara that this sansar causes is also full of sorrow. So, sansar inherently sorrowful. Its immediate fruit is sorrow, and even the parampara that it generates is one which is filled with sorrow. Having known this, Bhagwan shows a way of this out of this, and this is the first part of our sadhana that Bhagwan is laying out here for us. So he says, "Eyas sadam uchiti suddha dhamma." He says that this sansar can be destroyed by way of shuddha dharma. Now, the word this, he doesn't say that the sansar can be destroyed, by way of Shuddha Dharma. It's as if the word this is deliberately put there to show that the, we're not talking of the sansar that you and I are thinking of, one that is, filled with riches, one that is filled with luxuries, because ultimately, even that in Paramatma's sight, in the wisdom of the infinite Tirthankas of the past, present, and future, even such a sansar is futile and hopeless and full of sorrow. So he says that this sansar can be destroyed by way of Shuddha Dharma. Now, Shuddha Dharma is something that we've all heard of and we all talk about, but we don't often give thought about it. Dharma is in the form of Darshan Yan Charitra, because if we, this is very abundantly laid out in the Jain scriptures. Look at the beginning of the Tattvat Sutra. It says, Samyak Darshan Yan Charitrani Moksha Margaha. Uh, an interesting thing here is Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan, and Samyak Charitra. The Tattvat Sutrakar, Umaswati Ji Maharaj, he doesn't say, so Samyak Darshan Yan Charitrani, and the word succeeding, that is Moksha Margaha. These three, so if let's put this in terms of English, when you when you say a sentence out loud, the subject has to agree with the verb, right? There has to be some subject verb agreement. This is not visible in the first sutra of the Tattvat Sutra. So an ordinary, a person who knows Sanskrit and who studied Sanskrit grammar, at first he'll be amused because why have you mentioned three objects, three subjects, but the verb or the object and the verb they're only in relation to one. So to clarify this, Umasati Maharaj says that although we're talking of three different things here, Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan, and Samyak Charitra, it is only when the three of them come together that one moksha marg is constituted. So even if you look at this tiny sentence, there is so much Tattva lying within here that by way of using such a deliberate sentence construction, our Purvacharyas are compelling and making reiterating before us that the way out of here is not Samyak Darshan alone, it is not knowledge alone, nor is it Charitra alone. Ekant Darshan won't help, Ekant Gyan won't help, and Ekant Kriya also won't help. It is when the three of them come together that they constitute the single undivided moksha marg. So, this dharma, Bhagwan Shasan, is also in the form of the moksha marg. Now, the aradhana of any dharma that you do would fall in one or more of the three categories. It would either be pertaining to darshan or gyan or charitra, or could be more than one at once. But we do different kriyas, uh, but the quality of our dharma is far from shuddh, because here, if dharma kriyas alone were to help us, progress further, then the Shastrakar Bhagwan would just say Eyasana Michiti Dhamma. But the word that he put here is Siddha Dhamma, Shuddha Dharma, which means that the Parinam of our Atma while engaging in any activity of Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan, or Samyak Charitra has to be pure. This comes with practice, but ultimately it is Shuddha Dharma that will help us attain moksha. He says then, Siddha Dhamma Sampatti Pava Kamma Vigamao. Shuddha Dharma can be attained in a samyak manner. Now, samyak, sampatti is what here is the word used here. The prefix sam here denotes the word samyak, which means that this true dharma can be attained in a samyak manner when a person, sorry, when a person attains the dharma which is meant for his bhumika from his Guru Bhagwan or from another, from an authorized person, which means that if a person has the capacity to practice sarva virti and he practices deshvirti, then this is not appropriate for him. This is not shuddha dharma for him. And even if the dharma that he's practicing is shuddha dharma, he hasn't attained it in the right manner this because dharma changes with your bhumika. Dharma changes with your gunasthanak. It changes even in one gunasthanak. There can be several categories. Gunasthanaks are very broad. We say the first gunasthanak and the fourth gunasthanak, but even there you see a lot of variation within one gunasthanak. There are different sub stages known as conducts, and each of these conducts could have variations with respect to the kriyas prescribed therein, or the mental state that one should have in that particular conduct, and so on. Similarly, if you look at a Mahatma, and a Mahatma would say he engages in an activity like Jin Puja, then that is also not appropriate because this is not the bhumika that is prescribed for him. Uh, and there can be several examples that one can look at here. But the point is, without Shuddha Dharma uh, being attained in a samyak manner, one cannot destroy the sansar. But before we look at that, we need to introspect again. Do we find the sansar to be a good place or a bad place? Say you ignore Janmajara and Mrityu because those one might argue happen only once in a lifetime. Jara you could say is a gradual stage, but if you look at birth and death, that's a one time thing. And uh, say you have some exceptional punya, and because of that, you're able to fulfill all your materialistic desires. I mean, as they come, you keep on fulfilling them, and then there's more and there's more. So, in case, imagine this now, in case there were a sansar like this, an ideal or utopian sansar according to some of us, would we still think that this sansar is a bad place? One thing is that our Purvacharyas have, by way of logic and by way of several examples, very well established that the sansar is bad. So we're all, I suppose, good people. We do not speak against our Purvacharya. So we say, okay, the sansar is bad. But are we saying this because they have said this? Or are we saying this because we've realized that it is bad? This is something that we really need to think. We keep on hearing, sansar chodwa jevo chhe, the sansar is worth leaving, it's worth renouncing. But do we ever say this out of realization, or do we just say this because uh, there is no possible way we can refute it? It doesn't. It sometimes it doesn't make sense, but logically speaking, there's no way to prove otherwise. So we just say, okay, the sansar is bad. So which of the two is it for us? That is something that we really need to think about. So that's one thing. In any case, here Bhagwan says that one can attain Shuddha Dharma as per their Bhumika by destroying Pap Karma. And this Pap Karma in turn can be destroyed, he says, by Taha Bhavattai Bhava. It can be destroyed by five things, Tatha Bhavyatva, etc. This is what's written in the Pancha Sutra. We saw the five causes of the sansar or of any event that happens. These are known as the five karan or the five samvais. We have the first one is Tatha Bhavyatva, which is Swabhav. The second is Niyati. Third is Purusharth. Fourth is Kal. And fifth is Karma. Whatever sequence you might assign to these. Now, for the Jeev to destroy Pap Karma, and if speaking broadly for the Jeev or for anything in this world to happen, these five causes have to be present. There are certain people in this world who believe that only effort or only Purusharth will give them what is desirable. Some people believe that when the time is right, things will all fall in place. So you sit idly, or alternatively, you keep on working, and when the time's right, it'll give you fruit. Some people believe that things are already predestined, so it's no sense doing anything to change whatever was written because nothing's going to change ultimately. Uh, and these are the people who believe that there's nothing called free will. On the other hand, there are people who believe that nothing is destined at all. So just keep pushing, and maybe things will fall in place. There are different uh, opinions, different philosophies that people have even today. I'm sure that a lot of us, even while discussing with our friends, most of us, I'm sure, have had the free will versus destiny debate. It's a philosophical question, and the answer to that lies again in Bhagwan Shasan, in the beautiful philosophy of Anikantvad, wherein Bhagwan says that all five causes have to come together to uh, bring about a particular thing in action. Without that, nothing is going to fall in place. Uh, this is explained beautifully by Vinay Vijayji Maharaja in a stavan that is dedicated to understanding the five different causes. Uh, if you guys want to have a read, let me know. I'll share it with you in the group. It's in Gujarati, so it's not too difficult to read as well. Uh, so he basically gives the example of how a particular cloth is, made. He talks of how of all the cotton that's picked from the fields, not all of that is used to make the cloth, because certain crops of cotton are by default they're of poor quality. So you can never use those to make the cloth that you want to make. Similarly, there are certain jeev in this world who are inherently incapable of freeing themselves from the sansar, and these are the jeevs that are known as abhavya jeev. Uh, on the other hand, we have jeeves who have the capacity, the ability to attain moksha, and these are bhavya jeevs. Whether a particular jeev is bhavya or abhavya can be understood by different parameters. There are six particular sthans of samyak darshan, which is to say that a particular uh, jeev, in order to attain samyak darshan, or a jeev that has attained samyak darshan, would always profess faith in these six tenets. One is that the soul exists. The second is that the soul is by dravya nitya. The third is that the soul, the atma, is the doer of karma. The fourth is that the atma is the bhokta, or the bearer of the fruit of the karma committed by him. The fifth is that moksha exists, and the sixth is that there is a way to attain moksha. Now, an abhavya jeev, no matter what you do, will never have uh, the desire, or he will never be inclined to believe that moksha exists. So even if he, by some incidents, he happens to come across the Jain Shasan, he may even take diksha, and he may even observe it better than an ordinary bhavya jeev could. As a result of that, he will go as far as the ninth Gravyak Devlok, which is a very high place to, get to materialistically, and only those who take Diksha and follow it properly can actually get there. But even after doing that, an Abhavyaji continues to, suffer in sansar because there is no vision. There's no fixed objective of attaining moksha. So even if he takes Diksha, he would do it with the intention of attaining more materialistic pleasures in the future. If not in this birth, then in the next. It's sorrowful that an Abhavya Jeev might believe in, uh, you know, the next birth in Parlok, but he will never believe in moksha. And these Abhavya Jeev, they know that if we are to speak against the scriptures, then that will result in pap bandh, and that will result in, experiencing suffering in the sansar. Because of this, even when these Abhavya Jeev, some of them, when they have to speak the true dharma, they will never retain a word against the scriptures. So if you listen to their prarutnas, you will feel as if it is some very Gita, it's very Samvigna Acharya Bhagwan who is speaking. But the possibility might always be, there that this person might be an Abhavya Jeev. And the scriptures even say that these Abhavya Jeev often end up enlightening a lot more people than Bhavya Atmas do. And it's funny, right? But it makes sense because an Abhavya Jeev is always going to be stuck in the sansar. So technically speaking, he has more of a scope to tell people the true marg if he were to follow it just even with an intention of attaining Devlok. Okay, so here the five causes are discussed, and the Granthkar Bhagwan says that pap karma can be destroyed when these five causes come together. He says tatha bhavyatva, etc. We also saw what tatha bhavyatva was. Tatha is of that type, and bhavyatva is the inherent quality of a sansari jeev, which determines whether or not he will attain moksha. See, it's important to remember that bhavyatva is not a kshay quality. That is, it is not a quality of the atma, which comes by way of the atma's virtues. It is something that is brought about by it's something that's brought about, with the sayog of karma, which means that once a particular jeev goes to moksha, that jeev is not categorized as bhavya or the various types of bhavya. All atmas in moksha are equal. Bhavyatva, abhavyatva, durbhavyatva, all of these are classified only with respect to their sansari avastha. So, uh, also, it's important to mention here that there are infinite jeev in moksha, there are infinite jeev in the sansar, but the infinite jeev that are in the sansar are infinite times more than the infinite jeevs in moksha. Which is why even if infinite jeeves were to go from the sansar to moksha, infinite bhavya jeeves were to attain moksha, the sansar would still remain complete. You can't imagine, or you can't theoretically envisage a world in which the sansar would be completely empty and every bhavya jeev has reached moksha. That is never going to happen. Uh, all of this is also discussed in various scriptures. We're not looking at that right now. But unless someone has any questions, of course, in which case, please feel free to stop me whenever. Uh, these five currents, the first, he says, is Tatha Bhavyatva, that type of Bhavyatva. So the fact that certain mangoes ripen uh, is is because of the Swabhav or the Bhavyatva of those mangoes. Obviously, there are other four factors that also play an important role. Kal is of importance. You can't expect a mango to ripen in the winters, for instance. Uh, Purushat is important in case, then that can be understood by how well the owner of that particular mango tree or the caretaker, how well he looks after the mango tree, and so on. So all these five cardinals will fit in every possible scenario or every possible situation. Similarly, here to destroy pap, Tatha Bhavyatva is one factor, and then there are other four factors as well. Tatha Bhavyatva, or one factor, can be used or can be used as a catalyst rather, by way of harnessing the other four factors. So that is to say that our tatha bhavyatva, our bhavyatva can be ripened by using the other four factors. Now, of the other four factors, one key factor that lies in our hands in the moment is Purusharth. And that is the most ignored factor as well, because a lot of us, and we discussed this before, uh, even in the sansar, all five factors are important. But when it comes to attaining any materialistic thing, we give a lot of importance to Purusharth. When it comes to education, when it comes to earning money, when it comes to looking after our family, we don't leave it to our fate. We don't leave it to our punya. We don't say, oh, my punya will take care of it. We put in our effort there. But when it comes to dharma, we're quick to, jump to a conclusion and say, oh, like uh, I don't have the uday of diksha. Well, diksha is something that comes with the kshay or the upsham or the kshay and upsham of charitramonia karma, for which one has to work. People talk about not being able to do this or not being able to do that and leave it to their fate, or maybe when the time is right or when my luck shines on me, that's when I'll do dharma. uh, I believe it was Bhartruhari or some philosopher. He very beautifully put it in his Granth. Uh, he describes the state of an ordinary sansari man. He says, "Karishyami, karishyami, karishyami iti chintaya, marishyami, marishyami, marishyami iti na janata." He says that a person says that I will do this, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it in the future. He keeps on saying this to himself, but he doesn't realize that I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And in this manner, his time is his time is flowing. Immediately, you reminded of the second verse of Vairagya Shatak, composed by Purvacharya Bhagwant, in which he describes the nature of a Sansari Jeev again. He says that Ajam Kalam Parampararim Purisa Chintanti Atha Sampattim Anjali Gayam Vartoyam Galanta Maunam Pichanti. He says that I'll do this today, I'll do this tomorrow, I'll do this day after tomorrow, I'll do this the day after that. And the person keeps on delaying all of this in hopes of, uh, you know, thinking how to preserve, protect, and attain more earth, that is, more wealth, gather more possessions, engaging more parigraha. But he doesn't realize that Anjali Gayam Vatoyam, the the water of Ayushya, is flowing as if it were flowing from an Anjali. Anjali is cupped hands. So if you put water here, it's obviously going to it's going to drain very quickly. Our Ayushya is also running away in this manner, but we completely disregard that. This and there are Vairagya Shatak is a collection of 105 beautiful verses, completely aimed at inciting a person's Vairagya. Even if you think in the remotest manner that we're unable to act on it, even as a Shravak, it is imperative that we are imbibed fully with the virtue of Vairagya. Even in our sansaric activities, even in our behavior, our speech, the way we dress, the way we eat, Vairagya is something that that is an identifying feature of a Samadrashti Jeev, and even before that, of a person who's about to attain Samyak Darshan. Because, and this Vairagya comes with the realization of everything that we just discussed, that this sansar is Dukh Roop, Dukh Falak, and Dukkhanubandhi. So, for those of you who'd like to, I'd definitely recommend and urge that not only read but memorize Vairagya Shatak. It's beautiful. There's everything in there is aimed simply at inciting Vairagya. Uh, there are some beautiful examples in there, and it really makes you think. I'm reminded of another gatha. It says, "Nissa virame paribhavayami, gehe palite ke maham soyami, dajjanta makphadam vikhayami, jam damma rahiyo diyahe gamami." He says, the Purvacharya Bhagavan says that I wake up in the middle of the night and I think to myself, my house is on fire right now. I am inside the house. And how am I still able to sleep peacefully? I am burning, I'm burning away, and yet I pass away every day and night without doing dharma. Essentially, talking of how Ayush is chasing us, how Janmajara, diseases, Mrityu, and the other problems that we have are also chasing us. And there will be a time when our five senses might not be intact, when our mind not be, well equipped to comprehend the subtle tenets of this Jain dharma. At such a point, it we may realize that now is the time to engage in dharma, but it might be too late. So it's important that we all take note of this, keep reminding ourselves about this by way of studying, learning, and memorizing grunts like Vairagya Shatak, uh, reciting them every day. These are not Vairagya Shatak is not a granth meant for stuti of Bhagwan, but uh, it's just very reflective in nature. So grunts like these are very useful. Our point is, Purvacharya Bhagwan says that by way of these five currents, you can destroy pop by way of the ripening of Tatha Bhavyatva, etc. Now, this Tatha Bhavyatva, as we saw, can be ripened by engaging in Purusharth. And to do this Purusharth, uh, the Granthkar Bhagwan shows us three beautiful solutions. Tasya Puna Vivaga Sahanani, Chau Sarana Gamanam, Dukkada Gariha, Sukada Sevanam, O Kayava Minam, Ho Kamenam, Saya Suppani Hanam, Bhujjo Bhujjo Sankelese, Trikalama Sankelese. And this is where we stopped the last time. The Acharya Bhagavan says, Chatusharan Gaman, seeking refuge in the four, Garha, that is criticizing one's Dushkrut, and Anumodna of the Sukrut done by one, like by us, by our own selves and by other people. These three are media to ripen our Tatha Bhavyatva. When we do, now let's take the example we saw earlier of the mangoes on the tree. You can either wait for the mango to ripen on the tree, and that's going to take a very long time, or you can pluck the mango and you can put it in a box of filled with hay, and you can have it ripen quicker. If one wants to taste the fruit of the mango, the wisest thing to do is to act on it immediately, you know pluck it and store it in the box of hay, have it ripened, and take enjoy the pleasure of the mango fruit. Similarly, an atma who is filled with samveg, with the desire to attain moksha, he would naturally not wait for the mango, or for his satha bhavyatva here to ripen, but he'd rather act on it immediately. And by way of these three, he will try to, uh, he'll try to ripen this satha bhavyatva in a quick manner. All right. And then the Purvacharya Bhagavan says that these three solutions should be resorted to with the right samyak pranidhan. You do it with a strong resolution that I have to engage in these three because I want the desired food that I want. There are five stages we saw the last time in doing any activity of the Yog Marg, that is the Moksha Marg. The first stage is always pranidhan, that is a mental resolution that I have to get there. And this is the pranidhan in all our kriyas these days is very it's quite uh, lacking, which is why even if we do the kriyas, either we're not able to complete them properly. If we do complete them, we're not able to derive the joy that we're able to that we're supposed to get from these kriyas. And certain times we're not able to engage in these kriyas at all because we think, because of a lack of pranidhan, we think that maybe I won't be able to do this properly. Say, uh, I can't take this niyam because what if I cannot follow it? What if I'm unable to do this? What if that thought process uh, suggests a lack of pranadhan in our minds. So there's a very beautiful example uh, present in the Jain Mahabharat, the Pandav Charitram. Uh, Draupadi is Samyak Drashti, as are the Pandavas, but Draupadi's Samyak Darshan is something that is described in the scriptures as well. In the Agams like Gyata Dharma Katha, Rayapaseni Sutra, we see her Samyak Darshan being reflected in so many manners. The way she does puja, the way she. Uh, so once Narad comes to the court of the Pandavas, and all the Pandavas rise to greet Narad. Now, these, like we have the Trishashi Shalaka Purush, like we have the 24 Tirthankars, the 12 Chakravartis, the 9 Baldevs, Vasudevs, Prati Vasudevs. We also have 9 Narads. We also have 9 Rudras. So this universe is filled with 63 figures, but there's also certain other figures. We have the Rudras, we have the Narads, and so on. These 9 Narads are also people that recur periodically. And these 9 Narads are generally so the way that the Narad is portrayed in Mahabharat in the mainstream media, uh, it's a very inaccurate depiction, obviously, because these Narads are themselves Samya Drashti, uh, and they, although they do not take Diksha, they have they have one fault in them, which is present in every Narad, that is, uh, and this is that every time they have a chance, they'll try to create a fight between people. They like amusing themselves by engaging in trivial stuff like this. So, even though this is generally their character, the nine Narads, upon dying, always they either go to Moksha or Devlok, and this is solely by way of practicing Brahmacharya. So, this also shows us how important the virtue of Brahmacharya is. That even people, even fickle minded Mahatmas like Narads attain Moksha or Devlok by practicing Brahmacharya. So, now back to our story. Uh, just 1 second. Draupadi is in the court, and Naraji has come to the court of the Pandavas to visit them. All the five Pandavas get up and they rise in respect of Naraji. Draupadi, by way of her, and this is the Vivek that Samyak Darshan teaches us. Draupadi thinks to herself that this Narad is ultimately an avirtidhar jeev. He doesn't have any virti on him, so why must I get up and respect him? Uh, if it were a person with Sarvavriti, if it were a Mahatma who has renounced the entire world, has taken Pachakhan of abstaining from all Savadya Yoga in the 3 into 3 ways, not doing it, not getting it done, not consenting to it, and not doing any of the three by way of Man, Vachan, or Kaya, I would definitely get up and respect them. But this Narad is a Virti. He's a Virtidhar. So I don't see a need to, rise from my seat and respect him. And Naraji observes this. His pride is wounded, and he leaves. Now it's surprising to think that even Atmas who have attained the right dharma, by even just by way of their kashais, their man kashai, their lobh, their krodh, or their maya, by virtue of their kashais, even though they have samyak darshan or they are walking on the right path, they also often end up committing a lot of mistakes. This is exactly what happens here, and the Pandavas and the entire everyone that you're looking at in the Mahabharat, everything happened in our region, that is Bharat Kshetra. Now, Naradji, he has a lot of vidyas, so he travels to Ghatki Khand. And in the Ghatki Khand, there is a king called Padma. His name is also mentioned as Padmottar. And this king is this particular king is the ruler of a particular city. I forgot the name of the city in Ghatki Khand. And he tells, so he's I think he's not married anyone at this point. Naraji goes there and he paints a beautiful picture of Draupadi and he shows it to the Padmottar Raja, and he says, look at this beautiful woman. And he immediately, on seeing Draupadi's you know physical beauty, the depiction, he falls in love with this person. He's never met her in her life, he's never seen her before, but just by seeing that painting, he he aspires for her so much that he's completely wounded by Kam now, and he requests Naraji to get Draupadi to Gati Khand from Bharat Kshetra. And Naraji leaves after doing what he had to. He sowed the seed of the want for Draupadi in the king's mind, and he leaves. His job is done. And uh, this king, by way of his vidyas, he brings Draupadi from Bharat with her bed while she was asleep in the middle of the night. And in the morning, she's nowhere to be found in the palace. The Pandavas are looking everywhere, and they're unable to find her at all. So they go to Krishna Maharaja, who is the Vasudeva at that particular point in time, and they request Krishna Maharaja to assist them with searching for Draupadi. Krishna Maharaja uses his sources, his spies, and he finds out that Draupadi is now in the Dhatki Khand, and he also figures out that this is the job of no one else but Narad. And he's able to connect the dots very quickly. Krishna Maharaja was blessed with, exemplary wit, a lot of skill as well. He connects the dots, he figures this out, and Krishna Maharaja and the five Pandavas, they leave from Bharat Kshetra to go to Dhatki Khand. In between both the kshetras is the Swayambhuraman Samudra, which is the Lavan Samudra, I believe, which is voluminous in size. uh, they use a boat and they get there. Krishna Maharaj himself, he rows the boat, and by way of his strength they reach there very quickly. Now they get there, they camped outside the king's the boundaries of the king's kingdom, and the six of them are camped there with their with their people. At this point, Krishna Maharaja asks them, uh, do you want my help, or do the five of you want to go fight him and win Draupadi back? So the Pandavas say that there's no need. We're five of us, and we'll we'll go get Draupadi back. We'll fight with the king, and if he doesn't, I mean, we'll talk to him nicely. If he doesn't hand Draupadi over, we'll fight with him. And obviously, the king is reluctant to give Draupadi away. So there's a war. Now, at the beginning of the war, something happens, and they have a heated conversation, the Pandavas and the king, and they try to fight the king. Five of them, okay. And if you look at the description of the strengths that each of these five Pandavas had, it's mind blowing, because each of these five Pandavas previously in the previous birth, they had they had done different taps as Mahatmas. There are different tapasyas mentioned in the scriptures. Many of these are even found till date. All of them are compiled in a book called Tapavali. It's a it's a compilation of the different taps shown in the scriptures. If someone wants to do any kind of tap, you can have a look. Some of them are really easy to do. Some of them are very short in duration too. There are taps like Kanakavali tap, Ratnavali tap. Some, I believe it was Nakul or Sahadev who did the Ayambil Oli. And by way of doing different taps, each of these five Pandavas was blessed with a lot of strength, a lot of skill, a lot of beauty, and so on. Uh, Even though this was the case, these five Pandavas failed to beat the king Padmottar, and they come back. Uh, they're all embarrassed, and they show Krishna their face, and Krishna's Krishna goes there, and I mean, he figures out what's happened, and he just goes there and he fights the king. He comes back with Draupadi in a very short span of time. The Pandavas are really amazed, because I mean, this happened pretty quick. So they asked Krishna that, how did you defeat him so quickly? Because it was five of us here, and we tried our level best to fight the king, but in vain. So Krishna Maharaja asked him one question: what did you tell the king before fighting with him? So this is the exact words are mentioned in Pandav Charitram by Devbhadra Ganiji. You can refer to those, but what they said can essentially be translated to this. They said that so in the heat of the moment, they told the king that, come fight us today. Either you will be king or will be the king. And they tried to fight him, and they lost. So Krishna says that this is the problem, uh, and they didn't understand. So he goes on. He says that when I went, I also had a heated exchange of words with him. I also challenged him to war, and I said, today at the end of the day, I will be king and you'll be defeated. Now, if you see, this is a very minute, difference in the words that they used. The Pandav said either you will be king or I'll be king. Uh, Whereas Krishna Maharaja, he asserts that I am the one who's going to reign victorious, and he did. The story proceeds. They come back, Draupadi to the Bharat and the Mahabharata, of course, is a huge story. But what we're looking at here is pranidhan. Sorry. The mental resolution that we have is often shown in the kind of words we use. Conversely, the kind of words we use also shows is something that also influences our mental resolution. When it comes to doing a tap of any sort, we some of us might have a strong pranidhan and will be like, we're going to do this no matter what. And some people might have a looser pranidhan, and they might have the intent, okay, if it happens, it happens. I'll try to make it work. Something of that sort. In dharma, and generally speaking, in any facet of life, like it was in case of in this story, pranidhan is of utmost importance. Without pranidhan, you're never going to meet success. So, uh, in the case of Pandavs, their pranidhan was loose, and this can be seen because they kept they had that what if factor in their mind. Either you'll be king or we'll be victorious. Yes, correct, correct. Josh bhai, you're very right in saying that. This is also the part where one of the 10 acheras of this Bharat Kshetra happens. Because when all of this is happening and Krishna Maharaj is leaving, everyone's leaving from the Bharat Kshetra, the Vasudev of Dhatki Khand also realizes that the Vasudev of Bharat Kshetra is in my region, and the two of them, it is a law of nature that two Vasudevs can never meet. But in this case, the two Vasudevs, they try to, they both blow their respective conch shells, and the sounds of both conch shells meet. So, in a way, the two Vasudevs also met, violating a law of the universe. It happens once in infinite times, but it happened. So, point being that pranidhan is so important that even in something as trivial as war, it determines the outcome of the war. So when you are set to fight the eight karmas, and of all eight karmas, the most important one, that is Mohaniya karma, who has been troubling us, who has been oppressing us like a cruel, tyrant king for time immemorial. If we want to fight him, there's no doubt that our pranidhan has to be absolutely strong, which is why the word here uses sayastu panihanam. Sada, always with a supranidhan, you engage in these three steps. Now, these three steps, if you look at them, they're very simple and basic to do, to physically say out loud, or to even think about. But what their meaning is also something that's important to understand. And another thing that the Sutrakar Bhagavan mentions here is Bhujjo Bhujjo Sankilese, Tikalama Sankilese. When you are in times of conflict or stress, or your mind is disturbed, engage in these three solutions repeatedly. But on when you're having an ordinary day, do this thrice a day. Any medicine that you take, the doctor is generally going to prescribe it to you, for thrice a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. Similarly here, on an ordinary day, you do it thrice a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, at noon, and in the evening. What are we supposed to do? uh, Chatusharan Gaman, Dushkrit Garhan, Sukrut Ninda. Here, uh, we now start. So this is what we looked earlier. I'm afraid time's up already, almost. But here, of the four entities that we are seeking Sharan in, the first one is Arihant Paramatma. And again, this is where we discuss briefly the Roop of Arihant Paramatma. Before discussing that, we need to pause and think that the first step, that is seeking refuge in these four entities, can only be possible. See, here the Sutrakar Bhagavan says you recite the sutra thrice, you reflect on the sutra thrice a day, and when you're stressed out, when you have some sort of anxiety or worry, and your mind is not in a samadhimay condition, you repeat this step again and again. These three steps. But here, does it mean that you just say the sutra out loud, or you just think about the meanings? That's obviously not what the Sutrakar Bhagavan means, because uh, to say a sutra out loud is not going to do much. Of course, it's beneficial, and one must recite the sutra thrice a day to ripen the tathabhavyatva that we saw. But the ashray of the Sutrakar Bhagavan is much larger than that. One can only seek refuge in a particular person when he feels that he has no refuge or no shelter in this world. So for that, we need to first think to ourselves, do we feel that we have no shelter or refuge in this world? And for this, we look at the classical example of Anathi Muni. Uh, I hope everyone knows the story of Anathi Muni. This Mahatma, he was a prince. He was young. He was replete with all the riches, all the wealth, and all the materialistic comforts. But the one time that this disease, took over his entire body, and he was in so much pain that the crying of his wives, the concern of his parents, the medicines of his healers and doctors, and all the good wishes that um, his townsfolk were, sending his way, none of them actually did anything at all. And that's when he realized that. So In such a case, a person who would take it in the wrong way would feel morose, he'd feel lonely, he'd feel, he'd feel hopeless. But a Dharmatma feels the exact same way, which is why in the Santhara Purisi Sutra also, the usage is Evam Adina Manuso Appana Manusase. In this way, the Atma gives a hit shiksha to its own self with an adeen chit, without feeling helpless, without feeling, without any form of self pity. Uh, so this Mahatma, he resolves, he thinks at this particular point, his name is something else, and he thinks that truly I am an orphan in this world, because even though my father is the king of this particular kingdom, and this is my life, there is no one that can truly give me shelter in this world apart from the dharma shown by Janeshwar Paramatma. How does it give shelter? uh, if you look at it from a punya perspective, maybe the punya will come to rise and cure him of the disease, but this is not what he is looking at. Be whatever situation may arise, it is Bhagwan's dharma that is going to keep him in a state of tranquility, in a state of equanimity. Which is why he decides that, look, if this disease goes away anytime soon, I'm going to take Diksha right away and surrender my entire life at the feet of Janeshwar Paramatma and practice his dharma. That's why he takes Diksha. He becomes Geetarth, he's alone in the forest, he's doing jap, he's doing dhyan there. And that's where Shrenik Maharaja, the king of Magad, a very cruel king back then, that is how he attains Samyak Darshan. It is by way of this Anathi Muni's Updesh. And you look at the pride, this is not ego, this is not conceit, but the pride that a Jain sadhu has, in being by himself. He says that, you say, Shrenik Maharaja offers pity, and he says that, why do you say you are anath? Why do you say you are an orphan? I am the king of Magad, I am your father, I'll look after you. And Anathi Muni, you need some sort of confidence to tell the king of Magad, which is one of the most mighty kingdoms of the Indian subcontinent back then, that, "O king, you yourself are an orphan. Who are you to protect me?" And Shrenik Maharaj is taken aback by this, by this tone, by this usage of words. And he immediately says that, "Why do you say that? Do you have any sense? Do you know who you're talking to?" The ministers get angry, and Anathi Muni proceeds to narrate how the sansar is truly one that can never protect anyone, how dharma is the only shelter that is there for any jeev out there. This conversation leads to Shrenik Maharaja seeing a total change in his life. He becomes Samyak Drashti. It is this Samyak Darshan that later leads him to meet Shravan Bhagwan Mahavar Swami, which in turn leads to him attaining Tirthankar Nam Karma, and this is going to lead him to becoming the first Tirthankar in the next Chavisi. So the root of all of this lies in the conversation with Anathi Muni, and the root of this conversation was Anathi Muni's feeling of being an orphan in this world. So before we proceed to seek Sharan in the four entities, uh, I'm sure many of us, even on a daily basis, we say Chittari Saranam Pavajami. But how many of us truly think that we need to seek refuge in these four? That's something we need to think. The Panchasutrakar here says, uh, Java Jivam me Bhagavanto, Parama Tiloganaha, Anuttara Punna Sambhara, Khina Raga Dosa Moha, Achinta Chintamani, Bhava Jalahi Poa, Eganta Sarana, Arihanta Saranam. He uses several adjectives, and he says that Arihant Paramatma, who is endowed with so many virtues, may he alone be my refuge. The first one is Parama Tiloganaha, the supreme lord of the three worlds, which is similar to the adjective we saw earlier. The second is Anuttara Punna Sambhara. Paramatma's Tirthankar Bhagwant is endowed with Anuttar Punya, with supreme Punya that cannot be that you can't place against any other kind of Punya in this world. Even if you look at the Punya that Gandhar Bhagwans have, that and the Punya of Tirthankar Bhagwans has a stark difference. Uh, Now the Tikakar Bhagwant here, he specifies the word Anuttar Punya Sambhara by saying that, look, Bhagwan's Punya is something that is unparalleled because of a particular reason, and that reason is that the cause of this punya bandh, the cause of this punyanubandhi punya was also unparalleled. To understand this, we need to understand what Arhantya is. Arhantya is nothing but Arihanthood, okay? The state of being Arihant. This Arhantya is defined in the scriptures as nothing else but an extraordinary sense of vatsalya, of affection, of compassion for all the living beings in the world, be it the Jeeves and the Nigod, or be it Jeeves who who have attained Sanni Panchendriyatva. Arhantya does not discriminate. Bhagwan's karuna is such in the anti-penultimate birth that the Tirthankar's Jeev has, like I said before, it reaches the pinnacle of Maitri Bhavna. There are 16 types of bhavnas, 12 and 4. Of the last four, the first is Maitri Bhav, which is, you can roughly say that it means, having a feeling of friendship and, basically amicability with the entire world. But the actual meaning of Maitri Bhavna is that you'd want to see all your friends happy. And true happiness only comes by attaining Bhagwan's Shasan. So this Jeev of Tirthankar Paramatma says that, and as beautifully put by Veer Vijayji Maharaja in the Snatra Puja, Savi Jiva Karu Shasanarasi. I want to make all the Jeeves in this world inclined towards the Shasan of Tirthankar Paramatma. And it is this bhavna that a Tirthankar's Jeev has. uh, he tries to fructify this by engaging in different kinds of tap, by engaging in different kinds of, ways of attaining knowledge. And by doing all of this, a Tirthankar's Jeev, and only a Tirthankar's Jeev, so you can look at this two ways, but we'll come to it later. Uh, the Tirthankar's Jeev does Bandh of Punyanu Bandhi Punya, that is of Tirthankar Nam Karma. And that is why when it comes into rise, everything changes. Now we look at Shrenik Maharaja right now. Let's look at his example. Before attaining true dharma, he had already done the bandh of his ayushya, and I believe all of you know the story. He killed a pregnant deer, and he was doing anumodana of that particular action, because of which he did the bandh of the first narak, and he pleads with Bhagwan to save him, from. In fact, one of the things he tells Mahavir Bhagwan is that, look, I'm going to go to hell, that's fine. But what will people say about you? He's trying to, of sorts, emotionally blackmail Bhagwan. Like, uh, I'm a bhakt of your first category. And if people were to say that, look, even Mahavir Swami's bhakt is going to the first narak, then what will people say of you? To which Bhagwan obviously explained the nature of the sansar, and he says that no one can change this. Uh, and of course, Shrenik Maharaj also, he understood this later. But the point is that this Shrenik Maharaja, by way of bhakti towards Arihant Paramatma, that is Mahavir Samyavan in this case, particularly speaking, he did the Bandh of Tirthankar Nam Karma, because of which right now he's in the first narak, the first hell, where he still has a Samyak Darshan. But it's interesting to think that the moment he completes his Ayushya there, he's going to be born as the first Tirthankar Padmanabh Swami. And when right from the moment he's conceived in the womb, things take a complete turn for him. The same person who is now suffering in Narak will then be worshipped right from the moment he's conceived in the womb. So karma is so complex. It's as if the karma satta is saying that, look, you've done the Bandh of Tirthankar Nam Karma. I am ready to give you all the status and the recognition that you deserve and that you truly require to establish the true dharma. But before that, you have a few debts to clear, so get rid of that. Of course, for a Samadrashti Jeev, even Narak is not a Durgati, because even there, that person is only in the, he has a mindset that it's a good thing that this is happening now, that I'm able to clear my debts uh, ASAP. So, Anuttara Punya Sambhara. Bhagwan's Punya is Anuttar. It is out of this world, because the reason by which the Punya Bandh happened was also out of this world. No other Jeev can do the Bandh of Tirthankar Nam Karma like the Tirthankar can. So it is quite interesting to look at that. The second, the third adjective used here is Khina Raga Dosa Moha. Aryan Paramatma has destroyed Rag, the antithesis of that is Dvesh, and the parent of that is Moksha, Moha, Michamidikram. Khinaraga Dosa Moha, and then Achinta Chintamani. The scriptures mention, and not only the Jain scriptures, but a lot of Indian religions mention, mention the Chintamani Ratna. This Ratna, this jewel, is one that is protected by the devtas, and if you come across it, you just have to think of a particular object. It could be any object of wealth, anything. Just by thinking of what you want, that jewel will grant you whatever you want. So the Kalpa Vruksh, the Chintamani Ratna, and Kamdhenu, which is a particular type of cow, these three are capable enough of giving you whatever materialistic fruit you need. These aren't present today, but it's a legendary object. So the Shastakar Bhagwans in a lot of places and even in the Panchasutra, they compare Bhagwan to the Chintamani Ratna first. Yes, Harshji. Harshbhai, do you have a question?
You might have pressed it accidentally.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Uh, so this Chintamani Ratna, the scriptures first compare Bhagwan to Chintamani Ratna, but certain scriptures say no, even this is not an accurate comparison because a Chintamani Ratna is something that gives you what you want when you think about it, whereas Paramatma and Paramatma's dharma is such that it gives you the things that you've never even wished for. And this is true because if you see at the seventh Gunasthanak and upwards, the Mahatma, and if you read grants like Gyansar, when you look at the state of a Mahatma who has ascended that particular Gunasthanak, that Muni has a sambhav. He has equanimity not only between stone and gold, between things that are dirty, that are cheap, and things that are expensive. But this Mahatma also has a sense of equanimity between the sansar and moksha. So here the adjective is very rightly put. Achinta Chintamani. Bhagwan is like the Chintamani Ratna, but even more than that, because it is a Chintamani Ratna that grants you your wishes without you even having to think about them. So Paramatma's character is special in that manner. Harsh, a Chintamani Ratna grants wishes because it is adhishted by devtas. So once you have a Chintamani Ratna, the adhishtayak devta of that Ratna is in, he basically will, give you what you want. That's how it works. Just like a Kalpavriksha is also devadhishted, similarly here. Uh, Bhava Jalahi Poa. Paramatma is like a ship in the ocean of the sansar. Even in Namuthanam, we say Tindanam Tarayanam. Bhagwan swims across the ocean of sansar and he helps others swim across the ocean of the sansar. And he says, Eganta Sarana. Paramatma is Ekant Sharanya. He is the one, he's the only one in whom you should be seeking refuge in, because and this is the one in comparison to other sansari alternatives. You seek refuge in your king, in your leader, uh, your political leaders, or in your family, but all of these will always fall short of a lot of things. The word arihant here is defined. So a lot of people, when we say Namo Arihantanam, a lot of people wonder if Namo Arihantanam refers to, now if you look at Arihant, the word literally uh, etymologically, Ari is enemy and Hunt is one who has destroyed the enemy. And this is in context of, generally speaking, the different dosh of the Atma, mainly Rag and Vesh. So if you look at the literal definition in this manner, one who has destroyed Rag and Dvesh is Arihant. And by this, you could say that every Keval Gyani is Arihant. But this is not generally the case. When we talk of Arihant, generally speaking, the scriptures tend to talk about Tirthankar Bhagwans alone. So when we say Namo Arihantanam, we are talking of Tirthankar Paramatmas alone and not of Samanya Kevalis. This is something that has to be kept in mind. Where do the Samanya Kevalis go? They go to the fifth pad, wherein you say Namole Savva Sahunam. When you bow down to all sadhus, it includes everyone from ordinary sadhus who just have Mati Gyan and Shuddha Gyan, but it also extends to those who have attained Avdhi Gyan, those who have attained Mana Paryav Gyan, or those who have attained Keval Gyan. So that is where Samanya Kevalis go. When we talk of Arihant, and this is the definition here as well. That when we talk of Arihant, see in the Tika it says Tatra Shoka Drishta Mahapratiharya Lakshanam. Lakshanam Puja Marhanti Iti Arhantah. One who is endowed with or who is worshipped by the eight Mahapratiharyas. It says one who is worthy of worship of the eight Mahapratiharyas, such as Ashok, Vruksha, etc. That person is known as Arihant. That Bhagwan is Arihant. And Bhagwan was already defined previously in the beginning of the Tika. We saw different meanings of the word Bhag, and we saw how some of them fit well with it for our context. The first word used here was Java Jivam. For a lifetime, may I have the refuge of Arihant Bhagwan alone, who is endowed with these virtues. This is a simple meaning. Why did the word Java Jivam have to be inserted here? This is also a very interesting question. Several hundred years after Mahasami Bhagwan's Nirvan, there was a sadhu known as Goshtha Mahil who had a similar doubt. Whenever a sadhu takes diksha, whenever a person becomes a sadhu, he takes the pratigya of Karemi Bhante, wherein the niyam of the vow of refraining from all sinful activities is taken. Now in this vow, there is a duration that is mentioned, and that is Java Jeev, till the end of my life, for a lifetime. So Goshtama Hill had a problem with this word, and he said, he raised an objection saying that why use this particular usage, because that shows that at one particular point in time, when you die, that is, and you go to Devlok, if you don't go to Moksha, you're obviously not going to be following the pratigya there. When you go to Devlok, obviously your Gunasthanak declines. You are at the sixth Gunasthanak or the seventh Gunasthanak right now. But when you go to Devlok, your Gunasthanak directly falls to the fourth Gunasthanak. And you have no virti there. You have no niyams there at all. So Goshta Mahil said that by way of inserting this, it shows a hollowness in your resolve. It suggests that you're only planning to follow it for a limited period and not for perpetuity. The Sangh tried to reason with him, but he didn't listen. Ultimately, it's a long story. Ultimately, the Sangh stood in Kayot Sarg and they sent a Devi to Simandar Sami Bhagwan himself to get clarification on this. And Bhagwan said that the Sangh is right, Goshtamal is wrong. You imagine the entire Sangh with the Yug Pradhan of that time, with the Gacharipati of that time, all of them are present together, and they're telling a particular sadhu that this prarupna is Ud Sutra, it is against the scriptures, it is against the Shasan, and they had to go over and beyond this. They had to summon the Shasan Devi. The entire Sangh stood firm in Kayot Sar till the Shasan Devi went and came back. And the Shasan Devi got a formal approval, a formal clarification from Simandar Swami Bhagwan himself. And Bhagwan said that this is, that this person is wrong, the Sangh is right. Even then, Ghoshta Mahil did not listen. And this is when he had to be kicked out of the Sangh. You imagine, firstly, even a difference of one principle is taken so heavily in the Jain Shasan, because this is a very trivial difference. But just to preserve our Shasan, our Shruta Gyan, our scriptures from any sort of corruption, Acharya Bhagwans have tried so much, firstly, to bring people on the right path. And when they haven't been able to, they had to, sever communications with that person, excommunicate that person from the Sangh to preserve the spiritual welfare of that generation and the generations to come. Our point was Java Jivam. The word Java Jivam was the same. It was the same term of contention between the Sangh and Goshta Mahil, and the same thing is used here. So here, the Granthkar Bhagwan explains that if we don't mention Java Jivam, if we don't put a duration to this particular time period, then what would ultimately result is that once we die right in this birth and we go to Devlok or a different gati, wherein we are unable to follow any niyam, then the pratigya will break. So just to define the end period of this vow, the word Javajivam is used. So, and in this manner, uh, the Granthkar Bhagwant, and with him those who read or study or listen to this scripture, they seek refuge in Arihant Paramatma. What seeking refuge would mean in a tattvic sense is that they are ultimately surrendering their entire existence to Bhagwan. When we when we do that, there is obviously an implied understanding that in doing that we are also showing a readiness to to practice, firstly to have faith in, and to practice to the best of our ability the agya of Paramatma. What this agya is can be understood better and better by studying the various scriptures that we have at hand. We'll stop here for now. If there's any questions, we can have a look at those.
So, would love to get into the detail which you talked about. Uh, there are ananta Jews in the sansar, and there are asankhya Jews in the Sidsila moksha, right?
There are we'll definitely have a look at this right away in the beginning of the next session. But there are Anant Jeev in the Siddhashila too. The Anant Jeev that are present in the Sansar are Anant times more than the Anant Jeev in the Siddhashila.
So, if we take this as a mathematical question, right? After certain Kal Chakra, there has to be some balance or break-even point because
So now compared to we're talking of the Bhavya Jeev in the Vyavhar Rashi. In the Avyavhar Rashi also there are Anant Jeevs in the Nigod. Now when a particular Atma leaves the sansar and attains moksha, when a particular atma goes to the siddhashila, so that is when a particular jeev becomes siddha bhagwan. One jeev, as you know, is pulled out from the nigod, and this perpetually keeps on happening. That is why that is one of the biggest upkars of siddha bhagwan on us. That when some jeev at some point in time went to moksha, that is when we were able to, and this is a random draw. Uh, there's no selection here. It's just a very random draw. When one jeev goes to moksha, one jeev comes out of nigod. So that's the upkar of Siddha Bhagwant on us, that some jeev became Siddha Bhagwant, and that's when we were able to pull ourselves out of the Vyavhar Rashi and come into the Vyavhar Rashi. The scriptures, they do talk about this at length. We'll definitely have a look at it first thing the next time.
nice, cool.
Parshve,
Ji Hashi.
if Bhavya Jeev lose interest in moksha, does he becomes abhav?
No. A Bhavya jeev is always going to be Bhavya, and a Bhavya always a Bhavya. Whether or not, see that even a Bhavya Jeev can also be put classified into two categories. One is Durbhavya and one is Asanna Bhavya. Uh, if you look at the different, so we've been in the sansar for an infinite time period, and a Bhavya Jeev is bound to go to moksha at one particular point in time, right? So, in that particular point in time, there is a particular mathematical term used in the scriptures, which is one Pudgal Paravart Kal. When one Pudgal Paravart Kal, which is basically one last round of the sansar, which is also countless years, when you have that much time left, uh, and obviously for Abhavyaji this is not possible because an Abhavyaji will never have a last round per se. He's always going to be stuck in the sansar. Certain Bhavyaji who are Durbhavyaji still have more than one Pudgal Paravat Kal to go, to pass before before they get close to becoming Asanna Bhavya. Asanna is Nikat, close to. So many Bhavya Jeev are Asanna Bhavya in the sense that they will attain moksha in less than one Pudgal Paravat Kal. So in that particular point, in that particular period, if they attain moksha, then I mean they're bound to attain moksha. And when when one half of this Pudgal Paravat Kal is passed, that is when the Jeev attains Samyak Darshan. So even after retaining Samyak Darshan, there are countless examples of how people have lost their faith. Look at Mahavaswami Bhagavan himself in the third birth of Marichi, wherein he does Utsutra Prarupna. He is the son of Bharat Chakravarti and the grandson of Rishabdev Bhagavan himself. But by way of making one statement against the scriptures, he loses his Samyak Darshan immediately, and he suffers for countless years before getting on the right track and becoming a Tirthankar. So it is very not only for an ordinary Bhavya Jeev, but only also for a Samaj Jeev, this is possible, then for a Bhavya Jeev, it's quite obvious that he will still retain uh, his Bhavyahood. No, an Abhavya Jeev will never retain moksha. So even even if infinite time passes, an Abhavya Jeev is always going to remain Abhavya. That's the entire point. Because uh, and this can be understood by multiple scriptural examples. Just like you can't sow a seed in an infertile land, the land is always going to be infertile. You can't do anything to make it fertile. An Abhaviji will never attain moksha. Or uh, yes, Harsh.
How does a jeev become abhavya in the first place?
So bhavyato or abhavyato is something that is inherently present in the soul. There is nothing that makes a jeev bhavya or abhavya.
It's the so the basic nature of the soul is like bhavyata or abhavyata.
Correct. It is a karma janit avastha, but it is so just like every ore that you get from the ground. Not every ore is, gold. Similarly, not every jeev has the capacity to attain moksha. Just like not every woman may be able to deliver, a child. Some may be infertile inherently because of whatsoever reasons. This is the same case with bhavya and abhavya jeev. No matter what you do, an abhavya it will never have the yogyata to attain moksha. Now you can look at it in the sense that this is already predestined, or you can look at it in the way that an abhavya jeev will never attain the required bhav that is supposed to be, that's necessary to progress spiritually. So both ways, but yes.
How many abhavya jeevs are there in comparison to bhavya jeevs?
There are infinite bhavya jeevs in comparison to bhavya jeevs.
Are bhavya jeevs more or less than abhavya jeevs?
I do not remember the exact proportion between the two. I'm confused if it is Asankhya or Anant or Ananta Anant. Give me till tonight and I'll tell you. I'll confirm this with Acharya Bhagavat and let you know as soon as possible. I do not want to risk saying something that's I'm not sure of. All right, are there any more questions? Uh, yeah, they are forever in the sansar. Abhavya Jeev are always going to be in the sansar. That's what makes them abhavya. They're they're never going to have firstly the faith in a concept called moksha, and they'll never have the desire to go there, and they'll never feel the sansar is bad, and so on. Any jeev who has the question as to whether I am bhavya or abhavya is always bhavya. Obviously, this is if you truly think to yourself about this. This is guaranteed by the scriptures. And yeah, there are certain other things which only a bhavya jeev can have, such as taking a tirthankar's varshidan, taking diksha from a tirthankar, being a Chakravati, any of the 63 Shalaka Purush, they're all Bhavya Jeev, always. So, yeah.
What are Narads and Rudras? What are their qualities?
Uh, Meghavi said something. No, I mean the fact the sansar is never ending. Yeah, the sansar is never ending, right? Like, I mean, and this is the sansar is Anadi Anant for a Bhavya Jeev, and the sansar is Anadi Sant for Bhavya Jeev. Anadi Anant is that there is no beginning and no end to the sansar of a Bhavya Jeev. Anadi Sant is that there is no beginning, but there is an end to a Bhavya Jeev sansar, meaning at some point it will go to moksha. The qualities of the Rudras and Narads are uh, there are, I think, a couple of characteristics mentioned in the Chopanda Mahapurusacharyam. Let me get a copy of that and tell you the qualities. I don't remember all of them, but Rudras are generally, as the name suggests, very aggressive in nature, very prone to having anger. There is the example of, and they engage in different sorts of illicit, immoral activities as well. But they have faith in the dharma, and which is why even if they go to a bad gati, they I think they go to a good gati. They go to a bad gati, but they end up, they're Bhavya Jeev too, basically. Whereas the nine Naras, like I said, they have Samyak Darshan, they have Brahmacharya, uh, and they attain moksha or devlok by way of the Brahmacharya. They uh, have they have a lot of fickle mindedness, and which is why they can't be very stable, at ease. They have a monkey mind, basically. They want to stir up new drama, create fights and drifts between people, and they amuse themselves by seeing all of this. So that's the Sarup of the Narads and the Rudras. Satyaki, if you see, was the example of a Rudra. Satyaki is the person who married Uma, and according to the Jain text, he is the one who the couple who are now worshipped as Shiv and Parvati. So if you look at their charitra also, you'll find an idea. You'll get an idea of how much vyabhichar that's going on. All seven vyasans that are prohibited in the shasan. All of these seven vyasans are engaged in by Satyaki, and yet he has Samyak Darshan. All of this is very unnatural, but it is what it is. So yes. All right. Does anything else? Correct. There are kulkars, there are kalkis and nukalkis too. All of these are extensions of the different universal figures that there are. When we talk of Shalaka Puravi, generally look at 63. There's several more. Uh, we have the seven kulkars, for instance, in every Sarpani and Utsarpani. All right, okay. If there's any more questions, please let us know. If not, we'll end the session here today. Okay. Thank you all very much for taking time out on a Sunday afternoon. I know it was a last minute change, but thank you very much. And if I've said anything that's against the scriptures, that's against Janagya, Michami Dukadam, we'll meet again very soon, perhaps next Sunday. All right. Thank you so much. Pranam.
Thank you, everyone.
I wish we could do this every day, but I think it's going to be difficult for the most of us. So, all right. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good day.